Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Poblis. Poblis is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out poblis.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Life Wrap-Up. Joe Samaniego here, along with Adam Lemeries, Ben Schneider, and Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. We invite you to comment and share your questions and opinions in the chat room. Love to hear what your thoughts are, especially the NASCAR race and that caution flag for the uncontrolled tire. Definitely got a lot of people on social media talking. We have 5 races since Saturday. We'll start with some tragic news, unfortunately, coming from the NASCAR community. Earlier this morning, we were made aware of the passing of Eric McClure. The last race was 2016. In total, he made 288 career starts in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. His career was shortened due to multiple concussions, which caused lingering effects. No cause of death has been made public. We all send our condolences to the McClure family, friends, and fans of Eric. They are grieving the loss of a family member and a fellow racer. We encourage anyone feeling such heavy grief, depression, or not feeling well, please talk to someone. You're not alone. It has been a trying year for everyone, including some of us as well. With that said, we again send our condolences to Eric McClure's family, friends, and fans.
Yes, we're definitely thinking about Eric McClure's loved ones during this difficult time, especially him being a father of 7 daughters. Really sad situation. Fabio Quartararo was looking for 3 in a row, Yamaha's first 4 in a row since 1982, and Fabio silenced the doubters after last year's loss of form. Quartararo lost the lead to Jack Miller with 10 laps to go. Miller ended up winning the race. First win for Ducati at Jerez since 2016, and the first 1-2 since 2016. Miller's teammate Pecco Bagnaia takes the MotoGP points lead, and after completing the race, Quartararo was favoring his right arm pump pain. This is a condition in the forearm that can cause severe pain after intensive exercising. MotoGP riders are using all their weight and muscles to maneuver the motorcycles. Joe, how common is this condition and how severe is it?
It could range in severity. We saw Jack Miller after the Doha Grand Prix get surgery to address essentially the arm pump pain that he was feeling. He comes back, gets the win. This is something a lot of riders and a lot of athletes have faced essentially as they're working out those forearm muscles. And some people have said it feels like the muscle, it just wants to blow up. It just wanted to expand more and more. It's very intense. And we saw Quartararo after that race, he lifted the visor off his helmet and you could just see him in agony pain. And it had to be such a horrible moment to feel that pain coming. You're dominating the race and to lose it. Definitely wishing Fabio a speedy recovery.
And yesterday, Adam, you said a win again would make Fabio Quartararo the #1 rider at Yamaha and MotoGP in general. He did lose the points lead today to his teammate Maverick Vinales, who finished ahead. So here's my question for you. Is this the opportunity everyone needed to catch up?
I'm going to say yes. We talked about with IndyCars, we talked about with IndyCars, everyone sometimes has a bad race. Well, I think Fabio Quartararo he dominated and then lost the lead to Jack Miller. So I believe he will be in contention for the rest of the 2021 MotoGP season.
I would agree. I do see Fabio being in contention throughout the rest of the season as well, especially if he gets a good quick recovery. The big thing, this is the break everybody sort of needs. Because Fabio, if he had gone out there, gotten 3 in a row, it's going to really put a hard battle for anyone in MotoGP. And now with this, I still feel Yamaha, Fabio, they're the team to beat. However, now Ducati, they have a win. They could say, hey, we got to win. At a track, Ducati hasn't won in a long time. No real long straightaways, but they got to win. Second place with Pecco. And then, of course, we saw Vinales finishing ahead of Quartararo. A lot of potential there, and I think this could lead to maybe not as many different winners as last year, but more different winners coming up in MotoGP.
Yes, this is really going to be interesting to see how the season shakes up as we keep putting down the races. And MotoGP is going to be off this upcoming weekend, but they'll be back with the French Grand Prix at Le Mans May 16th. And be sure to follow Grid on YouTube or TikTok for any additional updates on Fabio Quartararo's condition.
And one of the things also off next weekend is the IndyCar Series. Their next race weekend will be the GMR Grand Prix May 15th. But first Saturday night at Texas Motor Speedway, usually an event held in June, but of course this year with the condensed schedule, it's in May and it's a doubleheader. Alex Palou started on the pole since rain canceled qualifying. He led the first few laps and then Scott Dixon took the lead, never let go, dominated the race for an easy win. We also saw one groove again since the PJ1 from the NASCAR does not work well for the IndyCars, essentially affecting their race, making it a one groove race. Now, of course, the reconfigured track has made handling a bigger issue. You no longer have identical corners, 2 different ends, 2 different corners. After Saturday's spin, did the reconfiguration and the PJ1 ruin the track for IndyCars? And what can be done to make it better?
Well, first of all, Joe, I want to share in extending my condolences to the McClure family. Just something completely unexpected. We saw Eric was tweeting up as recently as yesterday. I know he's been through a lot, especially after his Talladega crash. It's still one of the most frightening moments I've ever watched live on television as a race fan. I know he dealt with a lot of health issues, so we're thinking of him and his friends and family today. Just can't imagine what they're going through, and a terrible tragedy there. In terms of IndyCar Texas, I know I talked on this program a few weeks ago when we were at Phoenix about how the reconfiguration was a mistake, I think. I might owe Phoenix an apology because I think what we're seeing now at Texas is something that is so inferior to what we used to see here. Texas, to me, used to be arguably after Indianapolis, the second most exciting oval on the IndyCar schedule. Everybody kept talking about the race in 2016. They're showing the highlights when Graham Rahal barely edged out the win there. I know that was kind of dealing with flirting with the idea of a pack racing event there, which I know a lot of people think crosses the line when it comes to danger, but I think there's an opportunity for there to be a balance between that and what we have now. And finding that balance has gotten a lot harder with the reconfiguration in turns 1 and 2 alone. It's so frustrating to see how wide the track is, and yet we still end up with only one groove. And the fact that there's PJ1 now on the NASCAR side of things that's affecting how the IndyCars race there, even further limits the racing that we see at Texas Motor Speedway. And you saw it with Will Power towards the end of the race. Just got into the PJ1 a little bit and ended up sliding up the track, tried to slow down, but even after the initial mistake, still found his way into brushing the wall. I don't think getting out of the groove that much is something that should completely ruin your day and take you out of contention. But with the PJ1 at Texas, that's just the situation there. So in terms of what can be done, I know the popular cry on Twitter is to bulldoze a track, build a Walmart, and go back to North Wilkesboro. But I think in terms of what you could more realistically see, I think if you're Texas, you've got to consider at this point, you have to do something, I think, whether it's a full repave or maybe unreconfiguring the track, because they have really ruined Texas Motor Speedway, in my opinion. And it's a shame because, they say everything's bigger in Texas. It was one of the most highly anticipated tracks on the schedule. And now, here we are.
As you said, here we are. Just seeing how much PJ1 is on that racetrack, this entire high side of turn 1 and 2, 3 and 4, And I remember when it was essentially one of the more exciting races that we saw week in and week out when we came to Texas. As for some of the fans that are wondering about the North Wilkesboro reference, of course, Texas Motor Speedway, Auto Club Speedway, both of them got dates that essentially came from North Wilkesboro. So one of the big things is when it comes to Texas Motor Speedway, yeah, I know a lot of fans, they're disappointed with the races that has happened. Could it be something we see changed? Well, we saw Bristol change with progressive banking, get rid of the progressive banking. Will Bruton Smith, Eddie Gossage go to that extreme lane? I'm not sure. Of course, we do have next gen car coming out, and maybe get rid of the PJ1. It'll be really interesting to see what happens, and we encourage everyone in the chat room to discuss this as well. The single groove track conditions, that really limited area. But here's my question. When it comes to the racing, even if we didn't have single groove, it was essentially Scott Dixon's race to lose, where Scott Dixon was just going to go out there and get the win.
I think so. That was certainly my biggest question coming into today's race is already. I know we're only 3 races in, but it looks like, everybody was talking about Lewis Hamilton winning his 7th championship last year. I think Scott Dixon might be on track to win his 7th again. I know it's still early, but off to a great start this year, and just seems like he's so good at Texas. No matter what the situation is with the racetrack, always finds his way to the front, and could have easily won again today. Got up front, led a bunch of laps. So I think Scott Dixon's off to a great start this year, and had a great weekend at Texas.
Yes, and some of the questions I had entering today's race, I was wondering, can anybody stop Scott Dixon, because nobody could really touch him last night, although Scott McLaughlin got really close. And speaking of Scott McLaughlin, I wanted to see if he could back up that strong performance from Saturday night. And yes, McLaughlin had a really good race, but he wasn't able to get up there and challenge for the win like he did last night. But overall, I think Scott McLaughlin should be really proud of what he did in the IndyCar in his very first oval racing weekend, because he's coming from supercars, those heavy cars, and then you go to a much lighter IndyCar on an oval at over 220 miles per hour. It just shows his raw talent and why everybody was excited for him to come over to race in the United States in the first place.
Overall, Scott Dixon in the first on Saturday, he was the driver to beat. When he got the lead, there was no stopping him. But I believe if there were a couple more laps in the first race, I believe Scott McLaughlin could have passed his fellow Kiwi Scott Dixon and claimed the win. Overall, in the second race today, I was very happy we saw another first-time winner in Patio Ward. But hopefully next time they go to Texas, there's more passing and not just a single groove like there was.
You bring up a good point. Hopefully the next time we can see some more passing. We'll discuss a little bit more, including today's first-time winner at Texas Motor Speedway. But definitely a lot of questions entering the race that we'll talk about for Sunday's race. A lot of answers we got today from Formula One and that exciting championship battle.
Yeah, and last year at Portugal had 50 overtakes, and today we still had a good number of passes. However, it was another Mercedes and Red Bull podium with Sir Lewis Hamilton taking the victory. Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas complete the podium. Sergio Perez was able to finish fourth, utilizing strategy which put the second Red Bull in the lead for a while. And looking at how we stack up so far this season, Lewis Hamilton 2 wins and a second place. Max Verstappen 1 win and 2 second place finishes. And between the Mercedes and Red Bull, is there a better car, or are they almost equal?
To me, the two of them seem to be on equal grounds. Yes, we saw Mercedes had that upper hand this weekend. I don't believe that indicates that Mercedes is essentially going to start pulling away. I think it was just the conditions favor Mercedes, especially when they went to that hard tire. They seemed really fast. Bottas was really fast as well. The next race weekend, I think it's going to be really close between those two, and it's all going to come down to that start. We saw Perez didn't have the greatest start, got overtaken, had to come back. If he has a good start, he could be up there. Same with Max Verstappen. That safety car got around Hamilton, but then Hamilton did get around him again. The big thing is the start of the race and just having that perfect setup is so close between the two. Being 99% is not enough if that other team's 100%.
Yeah, we're only 3 races in, so again, I think it's a little early to say who might have the upper hand. Obviously, Mercedes did today, and looking forward to the next race weekend in Catalonia. Mercedes. You think back to 2016. I know Verstappen was the last driver to win there, other than a Mercedes driver. But that was the year Rosberg and Hamilton took each other out. So if you don't have that, I think Mercedes probably win that year as well. So I think Mercedes have historically had the upper hand there. So you could very well see Hamilton kind of get a 3-1 lead on Max Verstappen after next weekend, but season's still got plenty of races left. So I think it's a little bit early to call who's ahead at this point.
Yes, it might be a little bit early, Ben. Like you said, Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez both had great rebound races after Imola, but with Bottas setting the fastest lap, Perez didn't have the greatest start in the world, but he stayed out longer with a fast pace, superb tire management on route to a 4th place finish. And comparing Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez's performance today, which driver impressed you the most?
I'm gonna go with Bottas. He had another strong finish today, and I believe that it'll give him momentum as the season continues, and I believe he will be a contender for at least one win or maybe a couple more.
Yeah, I don't know, Adam. I think Bottas, had a really good position at the start of the race and then, fell back and still ended up finishing on the podium. So certainly much better than the last time we saw him. But I've got to give it to Perez. I know he started in P4 and finished in P4. So on paper, there's, nothing gained there. But, he mastered the tire strategy and did everything Red Bull needed him to do. I guess that's kind of a luxury now that Red Bull haven't been used to having now with Gasly and Albon struggling. They've got 2 drivers who are going to be contenders, who can run up front and have experience, and it gives them the option to kind of play around with the strategy a little bit more rather than having to put all their effort into Max Verstappen. So impressed with Perez today. Also impressed with Hamilton, obviously now up to 97 wins. Just absolutely remarkable what he's been able to accomplish. But I think Perez actually won driver of the day, which I know is a fan vote. Doesn't probably mean all that much in the grand scheme of things, but I think a lot of people were impressed with his run today, and I certainly was among them.
Definitely was very impressive to see that essentially weekend for Perez and Bottas after that Imola. The next race is Spain, where Lewis Hamilton has won the last 4, as you mentioned, Ben. And of course, the last one to win besides Hamilton was Bottas. Do you think this gives Hamilton that upper hand? And then entering Spain, especially if he could get another win, 2 in a row, how big of an advantage would that be for Hamilton?
I think it would be huge. Like I said, I think it's been a strong track for Mercedes in the past. And, if he can take a 3-1 lead, I know there's that cliche in stick and ball sports that 3-1 leads aren't as safe as they used to be. But, obviously racing's a different game. And like I said, still got a long season ahead. But if Hamilton can go out and get another win next weekend, I think that's got to be a huge confidence booster for him and the Mercedes AMG Petronas team.
I have to agree. I think that's going to be a huge boost for that team. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens at Spain. I think the big thing is going to be qualifying. If you could be in that front row, especially a Mercedes 1-2 front row, that's the big upper hand. Red Bull, they seem to be faster. I think those Hondas could come out and try to get the front row. And if they get the front row, we know Verstappen can do really good. Big thing is, can Bottas deliver and have a really good start? He cannot have a repeat of the start he had today. Now, another driver that wants to have essentially another repeat of today, that comes from NASCAR, and essentially Kyle Busch. Today we saw Kyle Busch win stage 1 and the race, and Kyle Larson win stage 2. With this, Kyle Busch is now the 10th different winner of 2021, joining Martin Truex Jr. and Bell as winners with Joe Gibbs Racing this season. With this win, Kyle Busch, championship contender, do you believe he is the real deal for the championship as of right now?
I believe it's still early in the. I know we're about a quarter way through the season, but I believe that Kyle Busch has at least a couple more wins. I believe he will be a contender for the series championship. There's a lot of good tracks for him that he could win at throughout the rest of the season. So we shall see.
I think people know better than to count out Kyle Busch at this point. Certainly this early in the season. How many seasons in a row has he gotten a win? I think it was only a matter of time. I think it's only a matter of time for his teammate Denny Hamlin as well. Kyle Busch to me certainly has to be considered in what's quickly becoming one of the most competitive years we've had in a while with how many different winners we've had so far. Certainly way too early to not consider Kyle Busch a championship contender because he's a championship contender almost every year.
It amazes me that some folks say Kyle Busch is not a championship contender. Yes, we know what happened last year, just getting that one win. I feel with the crew chief change that they did, he seems to be a lot better and is really starting to get to that point where I feel he is there week in and week out for the win. Kansas Speedway, we all saw that high line being pretty much the line that most drivers use throughout the corners of the race. Big advantage, of course, with that high line, tire management. The big disadvantage, you get into that wall, and if you hit the wall once, rub that fender and tire together the wrong way, it goes worse. And that's what happened to Denny Hamlin. Contact with the wall, started falling back a little bit, and then just as Blaney and Busch were trying to get around him, tire went down, and he was out of contention, making more hard impact with that wall. Last year, we saw this from Denny Hamlin. At the Brickyard 400, running for the win with Kevin Harvick, hits the wall hard, then continues a slump. Talladega, it's the wild card race. A lot of folks anticipate it as you could go here, have a bad race, but you're going to rebound. With Denny Hamlin and now 2 disappointing finishes in a row, could we see a slump just like last year after the Brickyard 400?
Maybe. I wouldn't go that far to say Hamlin's due for a slump or anything like that. But I think when you look at the season Denny Hamlin's had, like I just said, I still think it's only a matter of time before he finds his way to victory lane. He's now the only Gibbs driver not to get there so far. We're having a very competitive season. I know it's still a little bit early, relatively speaking, but I think Hamlin's shown at this point in the year that he's got a car that's going to be capable of competing for wins. And I think as a veteran, he's experienced enough not to let he and his team are definitely experienced enough not to let this one bad race, or I guess two bad races if you want to include Talladega. But Joe, like you said, Talladega is such a wild card anyway. One poor result here, I don't see them spiraling out of control because of it.
Denny Hamlin, he will win this year. I think he will have I believe this isn't the end of the season for him, but I believe he's got a lot of really good tracks that he's good at coming up soon. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Denny Hamlin in victory lane multiple times this season.
And we're coming up on a track that Denny has won at before, Darlington. 15 races remaining in the regular season, so plenty of time for him to get that win. I do see him getting the win. I think the big thing is just trying to avoid that slump. I don't see any reason why, unlike last year, after that hard crash at the Brickyard 400 and that slump, he got some good tracks coming up. And of course, Circuits of America, which is a track where nobody has experience on in a NASCAR Cup Series car. But still a lot of positive momentum, I feel, for the 11. With that said now, so far, I feel like when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series, there's really no clear favorites. It seems very competitive. When it comes to that being said, with all the teams racing and the next 3 races, Darlington, Dover, and Circuits of America, which team do you feel has the most momentum?
Well, Joe, I'm not really exactly sure where we're at right now because I just come back. I'm sorry, guys, have technical difficulties. So if you could repeat that, please.
Yeah, not a problem. And definitely welcome back. Out of all the drivers coming into Darlington, Dover, and Circuits of America, which team has the most positive momentum?
Well, I guess I'll just say today's race winner, Kyle Busch, and we've been wondering when Kyle Busch was going to break into victory lane this year, and he's finally done that. And so, yeah, so I guess Kyle Busch has most momentum since he's on the top of the NASCAR roll at the moment.
Me, I'm gonna go with Hendrick. I'm gonna say Hendrick Motorsports. They have won. They have won at Darlington and at Dover in the past. Circuit of the Americas will be a new challenge for everyone in NASCAR, but I believe right now Hendrick Motorsports is the overall Chevy team to beat, and it should be interesting as the season continues.
I'm going to be honest, Joe, with the amount of winners we've had so far, I don't know that you can say anybody is the clear leader in terms of who has the most momentum going to the next three tracks. And you think Darlington, Dover, and a brand new road course of kind of a wild card in Circuit of the Americas, three completely different tracks. I don't know if there's anybody you can single out.
I have to agree with you. I feel when it comes to NASCAR Cup Series, there is no clear-cut favorite with so much momentum. I mean, even when earlier on we thought, okay, Kyle Larson got that win in Las Vegas. He's going to go out there, win Atlanta, get Bristol. Nope, just one win so far. It's so competitive, the NASCAR Cup Series. I just can't see anybody that's being clear-cut favorite. Kyle Busch, yes, he'll have the possible momentum from the win, but is it going to be a huge advantage? I just don't see that. Darlington is such a tough track. Everybody else is just so evenly bunched, and of course, definitely it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with next weekend's race at Darlington. And of course, as we mentioned, there'll be no IndyCars next weekend, but they did wrap up their race earlier today at Texas Motor Speedway.
And yesterday on Grid Live pre-race, we talked about the big crashes that we've seen over the years in Kansas, but not this year. But the really big crash happened right before the start of the race at Texas Motor Speedway when Pietro Fittipaldi rear-ended Sebastian Bourdais as everyone else checked up at the start. Connor Daly had nowhere to go, went upside down against the wall, and it really reminds me of the crash with Joseph Newgarden at Texas several years ago. And what were some of the significant contributing factors to that crash?
I feel some of the big significant contributing factors was, it seems to me, as the drivers were all approaching the restart, they're all trying to avoid that PJ1. So all the roads seemed pretty close together when it came to the inside lane versus the outside lane. Then, of course, they were bunched up. I think were some of the contributing factors when it came to that start of the race. And then one of the things, talking about PJ1, we have a couple of comments from the chat room. Humphrey thinks the PJ1 is dangerous for the Indy cars. Of course, that's why you didn't want to see any Indy car in that. And then as for the momentum, especially in NASCAR, really hard to say that's a momentum or is it a slump by referring to Denny Hamlin. But definitely, those were some of the factors I saw with that first lap. Well, essentially, that pre-start crash.
I don't think I'm going to go so far as to blame the PJ1 for this one as so much as I am just the fact that IndyCar's got to space the cars out on the start. Now, I said this when they raced at Pocono a few years ago. I feel like that was one of the big contributing factors. And I feel like we see this, probably once a year. And I know the road course wreck that we saw in the opening race, that's a little bit different. But, there's got to be something IndyCar has to take a look at to try to minimize the risk of having multi-car accidents, especially on lap one, because you hate to see so many cars get taken out, in the case of today before the race even started. I saw Alexander Rossi joked on social media that Connor Daly might be the first guy ever to start an IndyCar race upside down. I guess you're kind of making light of a situation there, but in all seriousness, you don't want to see anybody get hurt. I think we're all very thankful for the aero screen again today. And I think if you space out the cars on the start just a little bit more, I think that alone would do wonders to minimize the risk of seeing big accidents coming to the green in the IndyCar series.
Yes, Ben, I really do believe that that's certainly an area that IndyCar needs to look into heading into the future. Is spread out starts on the ovals. If we have any oval tracks left besides the Indianapolis 500, I guess we'll see in the years to come. And one of the drivers involved in that incident was Alexander Rossi. And right now, Rossi is really down in the points, 15, and over 80 points behind the championship leader. So I know it's early in the season, but do you think his championship hopes are over, or with everything left in the month of May, especially Indy 500 double points, is there a chance that Rossi is going to get back in the hunt?
I believe Alexander Rossi will find a way to get back in contention for the IndyCar Series Championship. Or like you said, Cody, we're in the month of May. The Indy 500 is coming up at the end of the month. He's won that. So I believe Alexander Rossi will be a contender for the NTT IndyCar Series Championship as the season continues.
If he's going to do it, he's going to have a great month of May. I think if you're Alexander Rossi, you find yourself with a bad Indianapolis 500, especially considering the double point situation there, that's when I think you kind of just are going to have to throw in the towel and have no other choice. I think at this point right here, obviously you've got to start putting in performances. I know today obviously wasn't really his fault, just bad circumstances and misfortune there. But I think he was even asked in his interview after the crash, is it starting to feel like 2020 again? So, if you're Alexander Rossi, I think, are your championship hopes over? I don't think so at this point, but I mean, you can't afford to have any more accidents or things go wrong like you had today, and you've got to have a great Indianapolis 500. I think that's going to be huge for the 2017.
And you did bring up the good point in that interview. This is 2020 all over again. The one thing Alexander Rossi said, I have a car capable of winning. We just need to get that win and have a change in luck. With that said, though, definitely, he needs that change of luck. He needs to have a great month of May. I believe it was the Indy 500, where essentially his championship run last year came to an end, I believe. Overall, he needs to have a perfect race. One big advantage he has, unlike last year, where Scott Dixon came out win after win, podium after podium. Right now, 4 races, 4 different winners. If we get more different winners, more drivers having at least one bad race, that's going to help Alexander Rossi, but he cannot afford to have another bad race.
Yes, definitely cannot afford a bad race, and he's pretty much used up a good chunk of his free bad races that he can possibly have. Yes, I agree that his championship hopes are not over yet, but he's already in a hole trying to climb to the front, and if you keep having issues getting a deeper hole, then it will be game over. And looking at what happened in today's closing laps at Texas, with less than 25 laps to go, Pato O'Ward passed Joseph Newgarden for the lead. Pato never looked back and went on to become an IndyCar winner for the very first time. And the race victory moves O'Ward to second in points, 22 behind Scott Dixon. McLaren CEO Zach Brown promised O'Ward if he won an IndyCar race, he would let him test the McLaren Formula One car later this year in Abu Dhabi. And after the race, Brown responded on Twitter by saying, "See you in Abu Dhabi." And due to Pato's fearless driving style, colorful personality, raw talent, and competitiveness, could he potentially become the face of IndyCar one day?
I believe so. Right now there's a lot of good drivers in IndyCar. And I was reading that I believe this was the first win for McLaren in IndyCar since Johnny Rutherford in the 70s. So it was really good for the organization to win today, and we shall see as the season and years continue in the NTT IndyCar series.
I think Pato could absolutely become one of the faces of the series if he stays. I think Zach Brown. It's interesting to me that Pato O'Ward has this connection now with McLaren, and I think people forget already. It's been 2 years, but Pato O'Ward did a little bit of time in Formula 2, kind of formed some connections with Red Bull as well. So he now has 2 Formula 1 teams that he's got major connections with. I think he's still young enough, if there's an opportunity for him, to maybe go back down that road again. Obviously what we're seeing right now with Red Bull, a Red Bull seat would certainly be enticing, I think, to anybody, or a McLaren seat as well. We see McLaren kind of find their footing again. And it sounds like now that Pato won an IndyCar race, Zach Brown's going to make good on that deal and get him a test after the Abu Dhabi season finale. So, I think nothing can be off the table for Pato O'Ward at this point, but absolutely, if he stays in IndyCar, I think he's a tremendous talent who could certainly easily become one of the faces of the series.
And it's funny because last week after St. Pete, we were talking about Colton Herta, Formula One, and this week we're talking about Pato O'Ward, Formula One. I do agree that Pato could certainly become one of the faces of the series if he chooses to stay long term, because a driver as talented as he is, with all the potential that he has, as you mentioned, connections to 2 Formula One teams, Red Bull and McLaren, and if Pato, let's say, goes out here, wins the championship this year, and goes back to back next year or so, and McLaren is going to be looking for a new driver in the Formula One program, then maybe, just maybe, they'll promote Pato O'Ward to the Formula One team, and I'm sure since he would be young enough, if a top tier Formula One team comes calling, I'm pretty sure most young drivers would definitely take advantage of that opportunity, because it's not every day you're going to have an opportunity to drive a McLaren Formula One car, if that happens someday for him.
And that'll be very exciting, of course, the opportunity to try to maybe someday be with McLaren in F1. And of course, that's just going to make the McLaren IndyCar seat more valuable if Pato O'Ward was to vacate that seat. One of the big things, speaking about Formula One and other motorsport series, Week 5 of the grid ranking is now up online. Taking a look at the grid ranking, not a whole lot of changes when it comes to most of the standing. However, we definitely see Fabio Quartararo. He had a significant drop. Denny Hamlin is still in the top 10 despite his poor finish. And overall, a lot going on with the grid ranking. One of the big things, of course, Lewis Hamilton is now third with his 2 wins and second place finish. Last year, Lewis Hamilton racked up 11 wins total. Considering this year, especially the tight battle with Red Bull, do you believe Lewis Hamilton will win 11 races this year?
Man, 11 races again is just, it's a number so out there, I feel like, for almost anybody else, that, your first instinct would be to go, no way, it's borderline impossible. And yet Lewis has done that in recent years. So if anybody can do it, it's him. I'm kind of leaning towards that being a stretch, just because I think the Red Bull is at a point this year, especially with Max Verstappen, where it can take the fight to Mercedes. But the way Lewis Hamilton's last few seasons have gone, I certainly wouldn't put it past him.
Well, I certainly think that it could happen again, but Max Verstappen is going to be breathing right behind Lewis Hamilton there, and I think it's going to be back and forth throughout the season between Lewis and Max, and overall, I'm not sure if Lewis is going to get there, but I think Max Verstappen will certainly give him a run for his money.
A run for his money, and it's just amazing, as you point out, 11 wins. It's crazy to talk about any driver in any series getting 11 wins. And here's the big thing for Lewis Hamilton: if he gets 11 wins this year, that'll be the 4th season in a row with 11 wins. Since 2014, he only had 1 season where he got less than 10 wins. That was in 2017 with 9 wins. Just since he joined Mercedes, dominant. One of the things where in a series where we don't see a whole lot of essentially one team dominating, IndyCars, 4 races, 4 different winners. Traditionally, IndyCar has had at least 6 different winners. Is IndyCar heading towards 6 different winners or more this season?
I believe you will see 6 different winners in the IndyCar series. With the month of, here we are, the month of May, and everyone's gonna. I know we have a race on the road course at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. in a couple weeks. But I believe everyone's going to be going out to capture that Borg Warner Trophy in the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, Joe, I think you're going to see at least 6. I think the parity in IndyCar, like we talked about, it being one of the most competitive series in the world. With the fact that we have 4 winners in 4 races already, and there's, how many races? 13 races left to go. You're telling me we're not going to see more than 2 new winners heading into going all the way to the end of the season. So yeah, I think you're going to see at least 6, probably closer to the 8 to 10 range.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think, as you mentioned, possibly 8, 10. That would be really amazing for the IndyCar series if we see that. And of course, 10 different winners. NASCAR, 10 different winner. Still, only 1 repeat winner. And of course, that was Martin Truex Jr., who is the only Cup Series driver to win the Grid Ranking World Championship in 2017. Is Truex an early favorite for Darlington next race weekend?
Yes, I definitely think Martin Truex Jr. can be a favorite for Darlington. He's obviously had a lot of success there in the past, and also wanted to point out, I think it's really cool we have 2 Darlington races again this year, and we're gonna have 750 horsepower low downforce. I really expect the show to be way more exciting than it has been in recent years.
I believe Martin Truex Jr. will be contender next weekend in Darlington. He's had success there. He's won. And I'll agree with Kobe. It's awesome to see 2 Darlington races on the NASCAR schedule again. It's what the fans wanted. It's what everybody wanted. It's been like that for a very long time. So overall, Martin Truex Jr. to me, he will be a contender next weekend on Mother's Day week. Next Sunday on Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day race weekend at Darlington. Of course, we all know Darlington got the Mother's Day weekend when it was dropped to just 1 race. And then we moved from the second to last race to Mother's Day weekend. And then, of course, once they got Labor Day back, now here we are, 2 races at Darlington. Very exciting for the fans and, of course, for everyone in South Carolina, especially the town of Darlington. When you have all those visitors come in, it's a huge, huge deal for a lot of folks there. And we encourage everyone to be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon to receive notification. And of course, Grid Network on Twitter at Grid Rankin. The big thing, of course, we'll be back next weekend with Grid Live pre-race Saturday, and of course, Grid Live wrap-up, which you're watching right now here on Sunday. And we have one more item to cover.
Yes, one more item, and that's the Grid One shining moment, the one moment throughout the racing weekend that you thought was most important. And starting with you, Joe, what's your Grid One shining moment?
When it comes to the one shining moment, has to be Jack Miller getting that win. He got his first win under wet conditions, so everybody kept talking about when you're going to get your first dry condition win in MotoGP. He came under a lot of fire after everyone anticipated him to win the opening race for Ducati this year. And then he just hadn't performed the first 3 races. People were criticizing him. Is he the right fit for Ducati? This race, he hung in there with Fabio Quartararo. Fabio Quartararo was putting in some really fast laps. New race record, in fact. He was hanging in there. When Fabio had his issues, he got around, took the win. Tears of joy. He was just so emotional in that essentially first interview after his first dry race win today, singing the national anthem of Australia, his home country. That was the Grid, for me, the shining moment.
Well, for me being the supercars expert on the show, obviously I'm going with Scott McLaughlin. He came from a series in which it was primarily road courses and street circuits. He did test at Texas Motor Speedway last year, and I believe that testing proved him to be really good. He had a second place yesterday behind his fellow Kiwi, Scott Dixon, and had another top 10 finish today. Overall, I believe Scott McLaughlin is here in the IndyCar series to stay for a long time, and I believe he will be a contender for the series championship this year and championships in the future.
I have to give it to Kyle Busch. I know we got an update from Samantha this week on their IVF journey. Just absolutely heartbreaking to see them continue to struggle with that. I know they've been in our thoughts and prayers for a long time as they continue on that journey and have been so open about it with us. I can't imagine that the courage that takes. So for Kyle Busch to go out and win the truck race last night as well, I think that's got to be just huge emotionally for the Busch family. And, if there was ever a week where I was rooting for Kyle Busch and happy to see him get the win, this is certainly the one.
And I'm going with today's first-time winner in the NTT IndyCar Series, Pato O'Ward, and just the second season with Aaron McLaren SP. At 21 years old, he's already been in position to win multiple IndyCar races so far, but it just hasn't worked out. Pato O'Ward could easily be a 5-time winner right now in IndyCar, but for whatever circumstances that happened in the past, wasn't meant to be. But today was finally the day, and Pato O'Ward is now an IndyCar winner and potentially earned himself a test at the end of the season in Abu Dhabi to get in that McLaren Formula One car. And if that happens and Zach Brown keeps his word, I'm sure Pato O'Ward will be a really happy driver.
And we encourage everyone today to click on the Patreon's link, support, and keep the Grid Network on the air throughout 2021. We're approaching the month of May. We're approaching 1 year of Grid Network programming. Definitely going to be a very exciting time. Be sure to subscribe to us, follow, and of course on Patreon, you get more information about plans for the Grid Network. And we encourage everyone to visit Pablo's 10% discount for Grid Network viewers. A great deal, and especially since all the items, whether it's from dog leashes, clothing, accessories, portion of that sale goes toward helping homeless, sick, and rescue dogs. A great cause we all care about here in Grid Network. And definitely encourage everyone to visit the Grid at Twitter at Grid Rankin and on the Grid World Motorsport League at Grid_WML. I know Matt will be updating everyone later in the week, but Sir Lewis Hamilton has taken the Grid World Motorsport League today with his win. So definitely it's going to be a very exciting week for the Grid Rankin and World Motorsport League. Kobe Lambeth at the podium finish, Ben Schneider and Adam Lemeries. I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. Joe Samaniego here. Want to invite you to go check out Pablo's. Pablo's is a dog clothing and accessory company based in Austria. 10% of each of your purchases goes to helping dogs in need, whether it's homeless, sick, or ill dogs. This is one of the reasons why we support it. Kiska here is a rescue dog from rural Alaska and our Grid office dog. We care about our furry buddies, and we know you do as well. Definitely check out pawbless.com. There's a link on the video description, and by clicking on that link, you get a 10% discount on your purchase as well.